Welcome to the PS We Expire podcast. I am your host, Morgan Motzinger, and this week we are going to talk about the second pillar of resilience. So this is part 2 in a 3-part series, and I'm so happy that you are here today. Thank you for joining me. Before I get into this week's episode, I first want to invite you to the podcast after party. I created a special email just for people who are on this particular list. So every time I record a podcast episode, I typically have like more things to say or more personal things to say after I hit stop. And what I'm doing is I'm just recording another 5 to 10 minutes after that I'm only sharing with this particular email list. So I'm not posting any of these videos on social. I'm not posting them on the podcast. I'm not posting them anywhere. I'm just sending them to this email list. So you can click the link down below in the show notes that will take you to the VIP podcast after party, where every week you'll get a short video message email from me with my additional insights and probably some more personal stuff that I'm not sharing on a wider front. So this week, as we jump into part 2 of the series on resilience, I want to recap what was in part 1 very briefly, and then we'll jump right into part 2. So part 1 in resilience, how to build resilience, how to develop that muscle resilience so that when hard stuff comes our way, we don't crumble under the weight, but that we use it as a catalyst to gain clarity in purpose and direction in our life. The first pillar of resilience was to create a process. So that episode was all about developing habits that help us be better at feeling and also put support systems in place to help us during really difficult times. So that was part 1. Part 2, the second pillar of resilience, is to gain a perspective. I'm so excited to share this with you today because this shift in my mindset changed a lot of things significantly in my life for the better in a really positive and powerful way. So I'm going to share with you today 3 very helpful and practical reframes, mindset shifts, a new perspective, a new way to look at things so that you can start to filter your experiences through a different lens. So all of us walk around with these glasses on that says that if this thing happens out here, if this circumstance happens, I am going to interpret that in this particular way. As with anything, the more choice that we introduce, when we realize like, oh, I can actually change my lenses here. I can pick a different way to look at these circumstances. Anytime we introduce choice is when we really understand that we have the power to create a different life than the one that we currently have, if we want to. The overarching feeling or commitment that I want you to have as we talk about these things is curiosity. Curiosity is imperative when we start to think about things in a new way. Curiosity says that there's nothing that's off limits. Curiosity says, I'm going to be a little scientist here and I'm going to try things on and I'm going to test things out. I'm going to see if this is working. This isn't working anymore. I'm going to try something new. Curiosity allows us to find the things that work for us. So by the end of this episode, I hope that one of these reframes catches your attention and that you start to remember it as you move through your day and through your week. Okay, so I want you to think about the beliefs that you have. Beliefs are not facts. Beliefs are thoughts that we have thought over and over and over and over again. Many of the beliefs that we have been given to us, were given to us in childhood, and we just continue to filter our experiences through those beliefs. So again, this is just a chance for us to try on a different set of lenses and think about things differently. So the first perspective shift or reframe that I want to tell you about is this very powerful framework of both and. I'll explain what I mean by that. So our brains really, really love it when things are very, very clear. So our brains would love it if everything was in black and white. If there wasn't ever any nuance, if there wasn't ever any gray, our brains would absolutely love that, because thinking in black and white terms burns the least amount of calories. So our brains, calories are just a unit of measurement for energy, and our brains use up a lot of energy just thinking about things. When I learned that chess players over the course of like a chess tournament over for like a week or something burn thousands of calories just by sitting and playing chess. There are chess players that lose a ton of weight over the course of a chess tournament. That, I think, was something that gave me such tremendous insight into how much our brains actually use when we are thinking, how much energy our brains use when we're thinking. So I have talked about this in previous episodes before, but I'll share it with you again because it's very pertinent to this conversation, that our brains don't like it when we think about things in a complex way. So if you think about things in a black and white binary way, it uses fewer calories to think about things in a black and white way than it does to think about all the possibilities and all the ways that it could go. So our brains would like to believe that we live in a world, in a reality that is either or. So either this person is evil or they are good, or this situation is good or this situation is bad. I've seen this crop up a lot when I have delved into the world, like my emotional world, when I have thought, if I'm feeling this way, then I can't be feeling this way. If I'm feeling sad or angry or frustrated, then I'm not feeling grateful. And that is not actually how things function in this reality. We live in a reality of both and. So I can be both frustrated, angry, sad, and grateful. I can hold space for both of those things to be true. I've thought about this a lot in terms of like being a parent. Being a parent is the hardest and most rewarding thing that I've ever done. So parenting is both monotonous and exciting. Parenting is both frustrating and joyful. Parenting is both holding space for both feeling like I don't want anybody else to touch me, like I'm so touched out and I'm craving independence. And also, I just want to snuggle my kids and have them with me and be dependent on each other, be interdependent. So there is this reality that things are not in black and white. Things are not so binary. There is much more living in the gray and holding space for both and. I also think another clear example of this is how perplexing it is when people that we see on the internet, the way that they are online is different than the way that they are in real life. So there have been some people that I have seen the things that they post, and I'm like, that just does not align with who I know that person to be in real life. Obviously online, there's a lack of tone of voice. There's a lack of conversation. There's a lack of being able to see body language. There's a lack of being able to have some insight into the reason and the intention behind things that they post or things that they reshare or whatever. But I have found this understanding of the both and to be very helpful when there seems to be like incongruence in other people's lives and even in my own life, where I can hold space to know that I am both a kind, caring, thoughtful person, and I'm super selfish sometimes. That's just how it is. Like this is the reality that we live in, is that you can hold space for both and. So that's the first reframe that I wanted to share with you. The second reframe is asking, what now? We can very easily get stuck in ruminating on, I wish that didn't happen, or I wish I had done that differently, or why couldn't that have gone better than it did? Why didn't I make a different choice? Why didn't things go differently? And again, back to this understanding of how much energy our brains use in our thinking process. When we use up energy thinking about what we wish, how we wish things would have gone, we're taking precious energy from thinking about what we can do now and what we want to do next. Regret is a really useless emotion because we can't do anything about what's already happened. We can think about that even with things that we didn't choose, circumstances that we didn't choose to happen in our lives that were really difficult, that shouldn't have happened. And we can think about, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with that? What choices am I going to make today? And what choices am I going to make next in light of what happened, but not to get stuck in what if or what should have been, but it's like what to do now. What can I do about this now? Having a sense of love and compassion for ourselves is really important in this area, especially if we have made choices in the past that have been less than ideal, or choices that we've made that have hurt people that we love. Having this understanding that we are all doing the best that we can with the tools that we have available to us is really, really helpful here, and also enables us to not get stuck in the swirly thoughts of what I should have done or what I could have done differently, and help us actually take lessons and insight from those choices and do things differently going forward. So self-love is a really important key component to being able to utilize the what now and what next. I can't change my childhood. I can't change where I was born or my family of origin. I can't change the choices that I've made. I can't change anything in the past, but I can change my mind right now to think about those things differently and to alchemize them to make different choices going forward. Okay, the last one that I want to introduce you to is the power of or. I love this one so much, and it is probably, I would say it's the one that pops into my head the easiest. The power of or just helps us think about a different story. So let's say that you are in traffic and things are crawling along and some person cuts you off and you think in your mind, terrible driver. This is right where you can use the power of or. So terrible driver, or they didn't see me, or they just made a bad judgment call in the moment, or they're having an emergency, or, the ors are endless. You can think of any number of things. And this isn't an exercise in forcing yourself to think about all the different possibilities. It's really just an exercise in understanding that the way that you see the world isn't necessarily the way that the world is. So we think that we see the world as it is, but the truth is that we see the world as we are. We always are looking at reality filtered through our own experiences, our own biases, our own judgments, our own beliefs. And the power of or helps break that open enough so that we can at least admit that there are different perspectives in the same situation, that I have the power to, if I don't like the way that I'm looking at this now, or it's not helpful to me, that I have the option of looking at it from a different perspective in a way that helps me move through the world in the way that I want to. So if I am committed to the belief that, like I said, that people are doing the best that they can with the tools that they have available to them now, when I have thoughts come up like, God, like everything is going to pot, and all these things are terrible, and this is just the worst that it's ever been, My belief that people are doing the best that they can with the tools that they have available allows me to use the or to shift my perspective in a way that more closely aligns with what I really believe. So the power of or is I've failed, or I'm learning. I failed, or I'm growing, or I'm one step closer to my goal. Here's another one. I'll be alone forever, or I'm alone for now. The power of or is that we understand that there's always another way to look at things happening in our lives. There's always another perspective that we can have on our circumstances. And it's not about finding the right perspective. Because again, like we don't look at our reality in a way that is objectively true. We always filter reality through our experiences. So this isn't about finding what the truth is. This is about finding what is most resonant and what helps us, again, move forward in the direction of our most deeply aligned selves and our deeply aligned goals. So the power of or is just a really simple way to shift your focus to another point of view. It's kind of like, when you're on an airplane and down on the ground, it's all dark outside. There's a tremendous amount of cloud cover and you can't really see the sun peeking through. And then you take off and you continue to go up and up and up, and you pop through the cloud cover and you see that above the clouds, the sun is shining. It's just a different perspective on the exact same reality, right? You're just shifting your point of view. That's all that the aura is doing. It's shifting your point of view. It's making your brain not be caught in the thought loops of this is how things are. This is how things are always going to be. And you can't really see out of that. And this can be all of these reframes can be really difficult if your nervous system happens to be in a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn state. If you're perpetually in a state of stress, it's really difficult to logically reason your way out of those kind of swirly thoughts and where you feel like you can't get a hold of them or grasp them or do anything about them or change them. So some of the work is to address those habits in our body in a more somatic way. And I would say that is necessary to do in tandem with a tool like this, with these cognitive reframes, where you are not ignoring the needs of your body. Doing these reframes and having these perspective shifts is not about invalidating your lived experience. This isn't about painting a smile on all the shit that happens. This isn't about saying, yeah, these really shitty things are actually really positive. If you don't actually feel like that in your body, you're going to end up creating real problems for yourself if you ignore how you really feel about things. But this work, these like cognitive reframes, can work in tandem with somatic work and somatic healing. So movement in your body, addressing the trauma that's stored in your body, and paying attention to the ways that your nervous system is activated by external circumstances and stimuli. So the three reframes that I introduced you to today is the power of both and, which allows you to hold space for nuance and not see the world in black and white. The second one is asking what now, which allows us to kick ourselves out of the rumination of that I should have done things differently. And it just looks at things for how they are, and you decide what now or what next. And the third one is the power of or. What I really appreciate about these so much is we can feel very much like victims of our circumstances. And I believe that happens when we get stuck in one way of thinking. All of us do this. Even if we are self-aware and introspective, all of us have our particular blind spots. The internal work is never done. There are always going to be things that come up that we didn't know were there. So this isn't about doing it perfectly. This is just another tool to help us think about things in our life differently. This is going to have a profound impact on your relationships with others and with yourself. When we introduce these reframes where we can start to understand life from a different perspective, it busts open and increases our capacity so much for empathy. Because we understand then that, oh, the way that I'm viewing this or the way that I'm viewing the world is not, number one, it's not the right way. And it's also not the way that other people are going to do that. So that other person got a different set of lenses from their childhood than I did. They have different experiences that are stored in their body than I do. And all of these reframes not only help us view our own experiences differently, but they help us become much more compassionate, caring individuals towards others. It helps us to remember that all of us are just in this human experience trying to navigate this. Oh, I'll have to show you. Here's my new t-shirt that I just got. It's the quote from Ram Dass that says, "We're all just walking each other home." We're all just walking each other home. And none of us really has the path that is perfect for anybody else. We don't have the answers because nobody else gets a front row seat to our personally lived experience. So I hope that is helpful for you today as you are continuing to be empowered to choose the life that you want to live and to develop this muscle of resilience that allows us to not be completely devastated by the things that happen in our lives, but that we can have things in place and tools to help us to navigate them, to navigate the really hard things, and to say, I'm not going to give up on life. I'm not going to just move forward completely numbing myself out to my life, but I'm going to find these tools and these techniques and these healing methods to be able to be so present with my life that it enables me to move forward with a sense of connection and purpose to myself and connection to others. So, per usual, before we end, P.S. we expire.